Before we start this episode, I want you to think about someone you've lost, someone that you loved deeply. Maybe your loss was recent, or maybe it happened years ago. But if you're anything like me, there are times where I still think about them. And for just a second, it almost feels like they're still here. Like if I turned around, they'd be standing right there. But what if it wasn't in our heads? What if sometimes they are really still with us? Hey friends, welcome back to the Spooky Files. If you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. And if you're new here, I'm so glad to have you. I am your host, Mary Ellen Quigley. This is where we dive into the paranormal, the unexplained, the I swear I saw something, but I don't want to admit it moments that we all have and now have a place to talk about them. Today's episode is a little bit different because it's not necessarily about paranormal experiences that are scary. It's about moments of connection. These are moments that are hard to explain, but they're deeply personal because these are moments where people believe that someone they love didn't truly leave when they passed on. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's get into it. Our first story is called The Last Goodbye, and this one was sent in from Beckett. Beckett says, "Hi, Mary. I lost my dad suddenly 3 years ago. This experience happened the night after he passed. My dad wasn't sick for long. It all happened really fast. One day he was fine, and the next we were sitting in a hospital room being told there was nothing more they could do. I didn't really process it at the time. Everything felt kind of numb. I remember going home the night after he passed, and the house felt wrong. It was too quiet, like something was missing, which I guess it was. I went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything I didn't say, all the normal things you take for granted. And around 2 o'clock in the morning, I finally started to drift off. And that's when I felt it. Someone sat down on the edge of my bed. Not lightly, like actual weight. And I opened my eyes immediately, but I didn't move. Because somehow I already knew. I wasn't scared. I wasn't frozen. I just somehow knew. And then I felt something I hadn't felt since I was a kid. A hand on my shoulder, just resting there. And in my head, not out loud, not like a voice in the room, but in my head, as clear as if the person was speaking to me, I heard my dad say, "I'm okay." That was it. No conversation, no explanation, just, "I'm okay." The weight lifted from the bed, and the hand was no longer on my shoulder, and the room felt empty again. I didn't tell anyone about this experience because I didn't think they'd believe me, and I thought that I might upset people by sharing my experience. But I know what I felt, I know what I heard, and it was exactly what I needed. I love this story so much, and I think the thing that makes this story so powerful is that the dad knew exactly what his son needed to hear at that moment to truly rest and to truly be at peace with his passing. What a beautiful paranormal experience. And as someone who also lost their dad unexpectedly 3 years ago, my heart is with you, and I appreciate you sharing your story with us. The second story is called The Recipe Card, and this is from someone who wishes to remain anonymous. They said, "This isn't a scary story, but it's something I can't explain. My grandma passed away about a year ago, and if I'm being honest, I didn't handle it very well. She was the kind of person who held everything together in our family, holidays, birthdays, and life in general. And after she was gone, Everything felt off, like the glue that held everyone together had disappeared. A few months after she passed, I was having a really hard day. Nothing big happened. I was just feeling completely overwhelmed. And for some reason, I kept thinking about her kitchen. She used to cook all the time, and she had this old wooden recipe box that sat on the counter. I don't know why, but that day I decided to go find it. My mom had packed up most of her things and stored them in the basement, so I went down there and started digging through boxes. Eventually, I found it, that same worn wooden box. The same stack of handwritten recipe cards inside, and I sat on the floor flipping through them, just smiling and remembering all of my favorite things she used to make. And then I came across a card I had never seen before. It wasn't even a recipe. It was just a small card with a few lines written on it in her handwriting. And it said, "Take care of yourself. Eat something warm. I love you." That was it. And I remember just sitting there and staring at it because I had gone through her recipes before when she was still alive, and I had never seen that card. So I asked my mom about it later. She said that she had never seen it either. And I know there's probably a logical explanation, like maybe it somehow got mixed into the box, but the timing of it, the day that I found it and what it said, it felt like something she would have said to me and something she did say to me about 100 times. And in that moment, it felt like she was sending me a little message of love from beyond. Maybe it was just a coincidence, but based on the timing, I totally think it was Grandma offering some comfort from the afterlife. What a treasure it is to have all of her recipes, and I hope that when you make them, you feel like you are a little bit closer to her. So thank you so much for sending your story, and again, I offer my condolences to both you and your family. Story number 3 was sent in from Rosalinda, and it's called The Jacket. This one made me emotional too. This one says, "My husband passed away unexpectedly 2 winters ago, and the hardest part wasn't the big grandiose moments, but in the small, everyday things that I missed about him, like his coffee mug, his side of the bed, his jacket still hanging by the door. And I know it sounds silly, but I couldn't bring myself to move his jacket. I felt like if I left it there, a part of him was still in the house. So I just let it be. Weeks passed by, and one night I came home from work later than usual. It was freezing outside, and one of those nights where the cold just sticks to your bones. So I remember walking in, setting down my bag, and just feeling completely drained. Emotionally and physically, I was exhausted. And as I stood there by the door, I smelled his cologne, not faint like a memory or as though it was wafting from some item, but strong like he had just walked past me. I froze because that scent had been gone for weeks. I hadn't touched the jacket. I hadn't sprayed anything, nothing. And then I noticed the jacket. It wasn't hanging the way it had been. The sleeve was slightly turned outward, like it had been brushed up against. And I don't know how to explain this part, but the house no longer felt empty. For the first time since he passed, it felt full, like something was there watching me, like I wasn't alone. And I didn't move, I didn't say anything, I just stood there in the presence, letting myself feel it. After a few minutes, the feeling went away, and the house felt quiet again. The jacket stayed exactly where it was. But there's something about that moment that changed me because I don't feel like I imagined it. I feel like he knew I was having a hard night and he found a way to be there. And I agree. It's interesting because stories like this one aren't really dramatic paranormal experiences. It's more so just a smell and a feeling. But anybody who's had a similar experience to this can tell you there's no doubt that it is the person you love that's there. And I feel like your husband definitely was doing what he could do from the afterlife to help you through a really difficult night, which shows you just how much he loves you. And I'm so glad you shared your story with us. All right, our fourth story is sent by someone who wishes to remain anonymous, and it's called The Dream That Wasn't a Dream. And they said, I know people say dreams are just about your brain processing grief, but this didn't feel like a dream. A few months after my brother passed, I had a dream about him. And at first, I thought it was just a dream because we were talking like normal, sitting across from each other. And I remember telling him, I miss you. And he smiled like he always did and said, I know. And then he said something that stuck with me. You don't have to keep looking for me. I'm okay. And then I woke up. But here's the thing. I had been an emotional wreck since my brother passed away. Confused, crying, angry, pretty much every emotion under the sun. I was devastated and confused by his passing. But that day, I woke up calm. It felt like I had just had a real conversation with him. And for some reason, it brought me the most peace I had had since his passing. I don't know if it was a dream or something more, but it felt like the goodbye that I didn't get to have. I think the hardest part of losing someone is feeling that they're just gone. Like all of a sudden, someone who had such a huge part of your life is just nowhere. But I would like to believe that maybe that's not entirely true. Maybe sometimes they find small ways to remind us that they are still around, they're still connected, they're still here with us, even if we don't fully understand what that means. So whether you believe these moments are memories, grief manifesting, or something more, I think what matters most is how they made people feel. Because if something brings comfort in a moment where you need it the most, maybe that's enough. And that brings us to the end of this episode of the Spooky Files. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. Follow me on social media. Leave a comment because I love hearing from all of you. If you have a story you would like me to share on the podcast, you can send it to the spookyfilespodcast@gmail.com or fill out the contact us form on the spookyfilespodcast.com. I read every single email or message, and it helps build a community of people that don't just love a spooky story, but want a safe place to talk about all of the things we don't always admit out loud. Make sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. If you're looking for more paranormal content, check out my other podcast, Hoosier Myths and Legends, where my sister and I talk about all things creepy from the state of Indiana. We're dropping season 7 starting on May 30th. So make sure you check it out so you can catch the new season. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and keep it spooky, my friends.